Hello everyone, thank you so much for dropping by. To anyone who's new, this channel was about helping people understand the difference between authentic non-duality and neo, or modernized non-duality. I'm starting to focus more on spiritual bypass. You can look the term up. It's when someone misuses spiritual teachings and practices to dissociate and escape from their body, from their emotions, from their mind. And so I was just driving down the highway and just reflecting on, I started meditating when I was 16 and I'm 51. So I've been around the block. I'm not enlightened by any means. I'm certainly not a master or enlightened, but I've definitely, I'm a seasoned spiritual practitioner. And I was just reflecting on, there were a couple periods in my life where I was just in like non-stop bliss. Like I was in non-stop bliss. And some of them even more intense. One of them, I was literally experiencing healing, miraculous healings. So it was like bliss plus miracles. And so the thing is none of those states last. One of them lasted for 1 year and 9 months. It wasn't constant, but it was near constant bliss for 1 year and 9 months. And, but boy, did I have to work hard to keep that up and like turn away from life. I wasn't really living. But, the thing is those experiences, or those extended experiences, they're not sustainable. The very rare saint will spend most of their time in such states. But without proper training, which I didn't have, and which Neo-Advaita certainly doesn't offer, it really offers the opposite. And I would say with spiritual bypass in general, it's kind of this, I had this unrealistic expectation, like, oh, this is natural. Because the mystics would talk, Ramana Maharshi would talk about enlightenment as the natural state. But he also pointed out that euphoria was not that natural state, that peace was, that euphoria was a temporary state that came and went. And of course I ignored that teaching and chased after the euphoria. Got me in a lot of trouble. But part of what's on my mind, so there's kind of this unrealistic expectation of, like life being non-stop magic flow and miracles. And it got me in a lot of trouble because to maintain those states, not only did I have to dissociate from my feelings and my body, but I also had to really turn away from life. And now that I'm turning back towards life, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. You hear the phrase adulting, where you like learn to grow up. You learn to like make your bed and go to work and take care of the responsibilities and pay your bills on time and get in exercise and get in good sleep. Basically, they call it adulting, but basically it's just like being balanced. And for a variety of reasons, a lot of people around the world never learned how to adult. And so now they're like adults in their like 30s, 40s, 50s, like having to learn how to be a balanced person. But those of us who experience spiritual bypass, same. Like maybe we knew how to be adults and just zoned out into the bliss zone and forgot. Or maybe we never learned. Depends on your individual. But, yesterday was just such an amazing day. It was like, just things were just flowing, and I went to a new dance class, and I was all inspired, and today's just clunky. Like, things are not flowing today. And I started to get depressed because of that expectation of not accepting life as it is and expecting like, oh, I'm always going to be blissful. Everything's going to just flow magically. And that's just not how life works in my experience. I mean, again, the rare individual. But yeah, I haven't worked in a while, and I haven't needed to work. I've got some money in the bank, though that's changing. I need to get back to work, not immediately, but soonish. And so I'm going to start with volunteer work, and I'm really looking forward to it. But there's this other part of me that just wants to, not adult, like. Neo-Advaita or spiritual bypass really is like escapism, pretending to be spirituality. Like escape, again, from body emotions and life situations. But it's also escape from like living life. Like life is messy and challenging. And the classic spiritual teachings teach that. And then Neo-Advaita is, well, more or less agree about suffering and the nature of life. And they'll say, they won't say it, but what they'll teach is, and the way out is to dissociate. Whereas in a classical spiritual path, they'll, like the way, quote, out of suffering, for example, in Hinduism and Vedic philosophy is like to do your duty with detachment. Neo-Advaita doesn't teach that. Like, that's not sexy or fun, Like, who wants to do your duty with a detachment? Like, I want to go into bliss. Like, that's so I think Neo-Advaita negatively impacts those of us who are already trying to escape, and I already was through addictive behavior, and then Neo-Advaita became my new addiction. But speaking of which, I got so into this talk I'm heading the wrong way. It's only a minute or two out of the way. But I think the nasty part about it is then it gives the false spiritual teaching that like you can just escape through trancing out. So I'm adulting today, and part of what adulting is looking like is just accepting like life is challenging. Life is bumpy. Like not every moment is going to be magic, flow, and miracles. That used to be like a phrase of mine. Like the meaning of my life is magic, flow, and miracles. And on the surface, it sounds so cool. And if it were possible, like that's how I'd want to live. But I haven't figured out a way, and I'm currently no longer trying. Although I still grasp at it some. Like today I'm doing some grasping at it, Magic, flow, and miracles. God, it sounds so good. And the periods when I had it, it was just like, it was just amazing. And I still do have it, periods of it. Like yesterday was a pretty flowy, magical day where I just felt the presence of, I'm currently use the word God, you could say higher power, expanded consciousness, however you want to. That was my pervasive experience, and then things were just flowing. It was just like, this is so nice. And, like, until you're a master, until you've achieved enlightenment or liberation or whatever you want to call it, then that's not going to be the everyday experience. And part of it is cleanup, because I made such a mess of myself and my life through spiritual bypass that, like, there's this process of, like, cleaning up your life and relationships, and that's what I'm really into the 12-step program. I haven't talked about it so much on here, but, part of, I'll say the process of the 12 steps, like the meetings and the culture can be kind of wacky. They can be really nice too, don't get me wrong. But part of what they have in the 12 steps is making amends to people you've harmed. It's a very human, very I almost want to say wholesome activity and way to live. Yeah, I suppose I'm in the cleanup phase of my recovery from Neo-Advaita and spiritual bypass. And I mean, Neo-Advaita and spiritual bypass is a lot more fun, but only in the short term because it's not sustainable. And I've heard many people talk about the bliss depression cycle. You know, you like do all this meditation and get all high, and then you crash and really depressed, and oh, where did it go? I've lost it. You know, that's what you hear at Neo-Advaita satsang so much. Like, it was so clear, but then I lost it. And the teacher will be like, who is the one who is aware of the coming and going of bliss or peace? Which does nothing for most people. But so yeah, you know, it's interesting. In 12-step, they call it life on life's terms. Like just accepting that life is. And of course, pretty much every great sage or teacher talks about that. Even Ramana Maharshi talked about accepting everything that happens as being of God's will. So yeah, I'm just working on today. I wouldn't say I'm just practicing accepting life on life's terms. And the other big insight that came, I'll just name it, I don't think I'll go into it right now, is, you know, what really makes life meaningful is relationship, service, and passions or hobbies or interests, pursuing. Like, I mean, that's what some of the research says. You can check out positive psychology. It's the study of what leads to happiness. And so on a relative level, you know, I'm not talking about anything spiritual or metaphysical. Like being of service, good relationships, not just romantic, but friendships. And, you know, pursuing things that touch you, whether that be a sport or an art or, you know, studying something or learning a new language, a meaningful activity that you enjoy. And, you know, Neo-Advaita just like preaches the opposite of all that, and hence it creates dysfunction. And so I'm working on pursuing those things, living those things. Thanks for your time, energy, and attention. Hope this was inspiring and helpful. And I wish you a day full of magic, flow, and miracles. But more so, I wish you a day of peace and a day of growth and a day of fulfillment. Thank you so very much for dropping by.